Hi, everybody. Welcome to Consistently Creative Crew. Tonight we're doing the On the Farm project recipe, which looks like this. The new farm collection is really adorable and so popular that some of the pieces sold out, but you can order the bundle through the end of the month and they'll send you an IOU for the missing pieces. And then they'll ship it to you at a later date. So you should have received a link to the project recipe. And here is a sample that I made with with different paper. And I used a different border maker cartridge. And the idea of the project recipe is to alternate the sides, just give a little bit more interest. Pretty much any border maker cartridge will work because they're all intentionally 2 inches wide. So here's the sandcastles, the houses on the example, sailboats, cars, and here's the barn, which is what On the Farm uses. And that's what I'll be using tonight for class. Basically, border punches are too large for this. You would have to change the measurements. The border maker cartridge is 1.25 inches tall and 2 inches wide. That's what you want your print, whatever you're punching out, to be 2 inches wide and 1.25 inches tall. So let's go look at the papers, what you need. So I am using On the Farm. That's what I'll be teaching. You need 2 base papers or your album pages. And then you need 1 piece of cardstock, and you're only using half of it. 1 piece of designer paper, and both sides of that paper will show. And then a second piece of designer paper, and only the one side shows. So again, that's 2 pieces of paper or album pages for your base. 1 piece of cardstock, you only need half of it. A designer piece of paper that both sides will be used, and then a second piece of designer paper. So for tools, you'll need a border maker cartridge, and I use this. I'm showing you this as an example. I will be using the farm border maker cartridge with in the class tonight. You also, as you know, you need the usual tools, your 12-inch trimmer, tape runner, regular and repo. Scissors are always nice to have on hand because, in case you need to cut something. I believe that's it. Anything I left out?
I don't think so. And I will remove the spotlight and I will share my screen for a moment and show people the alternate papers that CM recommended. So it's on the recording. So can you see the papers?
Yep.
Okay. So the layout that they did in the project recipe, I'll flip over to this. So this is the sample that CM provided for us. These are the 4 pieces of paper that they used for that. And then they used hot fudge cardstock. But the other paper, they have 2 other paper pairings from the additional On the Farm papers that we have. So these are the other options that they recommend that would go together. So just in case you're interested in those, I wanted to share those.
And I did a blend. I did what they suggested in number 2, but
Yes.
I used my base papers. I did the brown instead.
Yes.
And instead of doing brown cardstock, I wanted to do red because it's a barn.
All right.
Well, good thinking.
There you go. So is that good for everybody? Do we?
Yeah, thanks.
You have what you need? Don't hear anything from anybody?
I think you're good to go.
Oh, we can get started. Okay. Going to start with your cardstock. and your border maker cartridge. Again, I'm using On the Farm, the barn and fence. I'm gonna try and keep the measurements on the table, but we know how that goes. Sometimes they get off. So first thing you do is punch your border all the way down the side of your paper on your cardstock. Oh my goodness, what is my problem? Don't answer that. Okay. Okay, and then you are done with your border maker system. And we're going to cut this at 1 1/4. You're going to cut the strip to 1 1/4 inches. It's nice, it lines up on the grid, 1 1/4 on the right-hand side, all the way down. Ah. And then we're going to set that aside. Well, here we go. Let's do this. Then we're going to cut it, Then we're going to cut it into 2-inch strips. Cut it apart at 2 inches. What other border maker cartridges is everybody using?
I'm going with the Happy Home Heart one.
Oh, nice.
I'm using sailboats.
Oh, good one, Karen. And then you're going to stack these up and just alternate which way they face. So 3 of them will be facing, with my barn on the left-hand side, and the other 3 I will flip over with the barn facing on the right-hand side. Just adds a little interest to your layout. We can set those aside. Go back to our cardstock. And we're going to cut at 2 3/4. I always line it up at the top, and then I double check that it follows the line all the way down. And they recommend to cut up, slide it up so you can make your cut. And then the next 2 cuts are 1 1/2. And you're going to do that twice. And then the remainder is scrap. So you can set that aside. Now they recommend that you label your pieces. So A is going to be whatever you cut out from your border maker cartridge. B is the 2 3/4 inch piece. And C and D are each 1 1/2 inch wide. I don't think this one is overly complicated, but I don't know about you, but it just makes it so much easier for me to just look at the tag and know I'm putting it in the right spot without having to measure it again. And that is it for our cardstock. And now the cutting guide number 2 is for your designer paper number 1.
Is this also the one we'll be using the reverse of?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Yes, yes, yes. And you'll just see the reverse on the inside the border. See how it's blue and then it's colored, and that's the only reverse you're going to see. It's inside here. All right, and the first cut, we're going to cut it at 1.5 inches. And then we're going to turn and cut at 2 inches. 1.5. And then we're going to turn and cut at 2 inches. I flipped over my mat today because I noticed I had a sharp indentation there. The papers were starting to look a little jagged. And then when I flipped it over, because it's side number 4, and then I looked underneath, I always keep a spare mat under my trimmer. Don't know if you know that, but there is a spot on the back of your mat, your trimmer, to keep a spare mat. So I always keep a spare one there. Okay, those are pieces E. Set those aside. Now we're going to cut 3 inches by 12. And that is F. Next, we're going to cut 3 3/4. And then turn and cut at 6. And those are pieces G and H. I also reuse these little flags. I just stack them back up again and just reuse them for the next time. Okay, and our last, this should be 3 3/4 if everything works out all right. And mine is a scooch wider. What is the exact measurement of a scooch? I don't know, but I'm gonna just trim it off. A scooch, if anyone wants to know, that's a scooch. And then rotate it and, whoops. Rotate and cut at 5.5. And that is to the very edge of your trimmer. You don't have to look at anything. It just goes to the very edge of your trimmer is 5.5. And then the remainder, is scrap. And those are pieces I and J. Okay, how's everybody doing? Good, good. Seeing thumbs up. Speak up if you want to take a pause. Otherwise, we're moving on to cutting guide number 3 for designer paper number 2. Just to throw as many numbers at you as possible and hopefully not confuse you. And this we will cut at 2 1/4. And then we will rotate it and cut it 1 3/4. Just gonna double check. It's written in the instructions, but I just want to double check. All right, 1 3/4.
This is the 10-inch piece?
Yes, but I just cut it to 12. And you need 6. So you'll have some left over. And the last piece is scrap. And those are pieces K. We're almost finished cutting. All right. Now we're going to go to 5 1/4. And rotate and cut at 3 3/4. 3 times. And the sliver is scrap. We should have a contest to have people come up with what to do with the leftovers. What'd you create? And those are pieces L, M, and N. And then the last cut, your paper should be 4 1/2. And it is. And then you turn it on this. Need to update the Post-it note. Turn it on the side and cut at 6 1/2. Yes, 6 1/2. And then that is piece number O. And I do believe, I'm not mistaken, we are finished with our trimmer. So let's take a pause and give everyone time to finish cutting, and then we'll put it together. Okay, the first thing we're going to do for assembly is put our border together. And you need your border maker cartridge punched out. I have 2 stacks of 3, and I have flipped the orientation of 3 of them. The barn is on the right, and 3 of them, the barn is on the left. It's not required. It just is part of the project recipe, and it adds to the layout. Then you need your stack of E pieces, which is 1 1/2 by 2. And your stack of K pieces, which is 2 1/4 by 1 3/4. That's very small. I apologize. Okay. So with your E pieces, I'm going to take half of them and turn them over. This is designer paper number 1, and you're to do half. And I am going to line up my pieces, and I'm going to run repo just across the bottom. Actually, don't need to run it the whole way. And then I'm just going to take my border maker cartridge pieces, line them up on the bottom. That way, in case your border maker cartridge has an intricate design, you're not going to hurt it just by putting on the repo. Okay, so there they are. And now I'm going to take my K pieces, I'm going to flip these over, put regular tape runner on it, and then just center them on these papers. Well, that one border maker cartridge is a smidge small. And this one's a little large. I'm just going to turn it over and trim it. Just center it in the middle of the square. All right, now let's put the border together. Piece F, which is 3.5 by 12. And then your cardstock goes on top of it, which is 2 3/4. I'm a minimalist when it comes to tape runner. Just get an equal center the paper from side to side. All right, now I'm just going to dry fit this on here. I think it's about 1/4 inch in between, and you're alternating the back papers, as you can see. You could measure it if you wanted to, but that requires math, and I don't want to use math. I'm allergic to math. So I'm pretty happy with that placement. I'm going to just use repo. That way, if I get a little crooked, I can readjust. Oops, I think I got crooked. Peg, I'm excited to see how your border maker cartridge turned out. Or did you go with the park bench?
Can you repeat what were the 2 base papers? So is it the, what, 3 3/4?
The long from cut guide number 2, designer paper number 1 is 3 inches by 12.
Okay,
And then your cardstock is 2 3/4 by 12.
okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
No problem. And now as I'm looking at it, I look like I skewed a little bit to the right as I was putting this down. So I'm going to take it up. That's why I love you, repo. And scoot it over. Maybe nobody else would notice, but that's the first thing I noticed. Can't talk and stick thing down straight. All right. That's going to pause it right here. Give everyone a chance to catch up and do their border. Okay, now we have our border together, and you need to have your 2 base papers out, and I'm just going to lay out the layout. You put the border, about 1/4 of an inch from the inside, and you do your 2 strips about 1/4 inch from either side, your cardstock strips. And then I and J, which are 3.5 by 5 3/4, just touching your strip. And then G and H, which are 3.5 by 5 3/4, go down here. 5 3/4 on the right-hand side, 5 1/4 on the left-hand side. And then L, M, and N, which is 5 by 3.5. And then your 4.5 by 6.5 goes up here. And that is the layout. We'll pause and put it together and come back and show you our finished layouts. Looking forward to see what you did. Okay, thanks to the magic of video, my layout is complete. I went a little bit off the sketch because I had so many pictures of cute horses that I actually added a 6 by 12 peekaboo pocket to the left-hand side of my page. So I used I used a strip of the designer paper. Instead of cutting it 4.5 by 6.5, I just left it whole. And then I used the strip and a sticker for the front of my peekaboo pocket. And I left a little bit an opening here so it's clear so I can see the wood background. And then on the inside, I mounted 2 photos. And then I used as the layout instructed, I used 2 of the mats here. So I added 4 photos when it was only an additional 4 photos. When there was in the project recipe, it was just for 2. And then I will take this is the peekaboo pocket. There is an adhesive already on here. It's nearly impossible to see. There's a strip that covers the adhesive that you peel off. It's clear plastic. Come on. All right. Here's the adhesive. You can see it looks like clear cellophane tape. This is the tape I pull off. The adhesive is right here, and I will be mounting that on my page protector right on top of it. So I'll slide the papers in and then mount that on top. And then I'll be able to get my inside photos and those photos also. And generally when I do a peekaboo pocket, I put an embellishment on here so that it stands up a little bit so that it makes you think that that's how you should open that page. So I haven't done it on there yet. So I'll end up putting something. I'll make sure to put it in. I don't have it in the sleeves yet because it causes such a glare. So I did the clusters of 3, and then I did it across the pages. So you could see I have my journaling square. I used 2 matte packs over here because the piece of paper that was intended for here, I didn't cut it, and I used that entire strip over here. So I hope, does anybody else complete their layout that would like to share?
I'm not quite done yet.
Okay.
I can share mine.
Okay, Kari.
Can you change the
Yep.
spotlight easily?
Oh, party hats. Oh, it looks good. Very nice.
Wait a minute. Oh, I'm just seeing Colleen. Do I have the right
Uh, y-
speaker?
I think she spotlit me.
I did. It's spotlit for everyone.
Uh-oh. Mhm.
Um,
All right.
okay, nice job.
Anybody else?
Anybody else want to share? Well, I hope if you do the project recipe, you post a photo of yourself and put it in the album. It's called On the Farm Project Recipe with today's date, April 12th. And you can see samples there. Thank you very much for joining us, Consistently Creative Crew. Next week, we'll have an open crop. Come and just complete whatever you need to work on. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Colleen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.